It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. We have the honored guest himself, the smartest man in the room, the governor of Texas, because he owns so much real estate in Texas, Mr. Michael Becker.
Hey, Paul.
Michael, how are you doing? How's everything?
Yeah, things are going good. Ready to continue, hopefully, a good year in 2019, and looking forward to doing more and more deals this year.
2019 has already started off well for, I think, a lot of folks that are in the multifamily business. And we love that you're listening to the Old Capital podcast, so we appreciate that. Michael, as you know, has gone from being a banker to being an apartment owner. So he owns how many units now?
Today we own about 4,500 units. We've done nearly 6,700 units this cycle.
So you've sold a bunch of properties too.
Yeah, we own about 20 deals, sold 13, done 33, sold 13, own 20 today. It's been a good run.
And had to put out, 900 K1s?
Yeah, we're in the middle of finishing up taxes, hopefully get them all done by the end of February, and we'll do nearly 900 K1s this year. So that's a lot of paperwork.
That is a lot of paperwork. Question that came in I thought was a good one. Michael, how do you get comfortable with hard money day one?
So these last several years has been, pretty aggressive sellers market, and part of that has been people trying to, the term I don't like to hear when you talk to brokers is you got to differentiate yourself from the next group. And that's code for, raising your price or increasing the aggressiveness of your terms. And one of those things out here recently have been a lot of, day one, non-refundable earnest money. So the seller knows you're committed to the deal. You're not going to walk away. So it kind of increases the certainty of execution. Or if you do walk away, there's some, financial penalty to it. So how do you get comfortable with that? So, I think first and foremost, the market's always fluid, always changing. So it feels to us right now, the last several months and right now that, I think the buyer pool is a little shallower today than what it was, say, a year ago or so. So I don't think it's probably going to be less common than it has been, almost a certainty on virtually every deal. In 2017, 2018, most of those deals all had hard earnest money out of the gate. I think you'll probably have, several deals that still have it, but, several deals you might not need to do it. So I think that's kind of first and foremost. Secondarily, how do we get comfortable with it? We'll do certain critical diligence items before we ever sign a PSA, purchase sale agreement, or your contract is another term for that. And actually, that's when your money goes non-refundable if you're hard day one. So if you are hard day one, we typically have 3 carve-outs to that hard money that, first and foremost, if there's like an environmental issue that you're unaware of, that you find during your diligence before you close, that you can get your money back. Second, any sort of unknown title defects the seller can't cure, you can view a title objection, they can't cure it, you get your money back. Or finally, there's seller defaults. The seller just doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you can get your earnest money back. So those are your typical 3 standard carve-outs to that, but short of that, the money's hard. So if the seller's occupancy drops and your loan proceeds get cut, tough, you got to suck it up and bring some more capital, close the deal, because that's on it's your risk, not their risk. More if there's some missed physical issue you don't know, then that's your risk and not their risk. So what we do is we make sure, we try to get a copy of any past environmental reports. We try to get, access to the property early where we can walk, all or some of the units, get a good sample, make sure we check out all the major components of the building, just to make sure that we understand there's no, major bogeys out there. So we'll take a little bit of risk, but I want to make sure that I know my roof isn't going to need to be replaced and I'm not budgeting for that, right? That's a good example. And we try to do a lease file audit because we're making assumptions. We're using the information the seller provides. We're making our underwriting assumptions and putting an offer in. So we want to do our best to verify that, the rents on the rent roll are what's really contained in the leases on the property. We'll also get a couple of key diligence items like, try to get copies of bank statements. So we try to verify the income that they report, copies of the utility bills, and then, loss runs are a big thing. So making sure that, I'm quoting my insurance, I'm making certain assumptions. I want to know what kind of losses the property you've had on record so I can make sure that, I'm not assuming $200 in insurance unit when it really should be $400 in insurance because I can have a material swing to the deal. So those are some of the basic things that I do before I sign a PSA and get my money hard. So that's what I try to do. Not all deals are equal. Some deals you can get some of this stuff, some deals you can't, and then you just really need to understand what kind of risk you're walking into.
We've had a transaction probably about 6 months ago that I want to have everybody be reminded is that the borrower had $200,000 at risk in the transaction. So they immediately went hard in the deal. So they did their physical due diligence. Now they've got into the transaction. We do our third-party reports in the deal. Property appraised fine. Everything came in. But the seller had taken their foot off the gas and the performance had gone down significantly. Now we come back to present the transaction from Fannie to the borrower. And Fannie says, we're going to probably reduce our exposure from X down to Y, which was a significant cut because during that period of time, not only the performance was falling apart or failing, the interest rates were rising too. So if you know interest rates go up, payments go up, debt service gets affected on the deal, loan dollars get cut. So we had two things, performance of the property and interest rates rising. And so the loan dollars were for the borrower were not going to be sufficient to do the deal based on what he originally thought he was going to get. So he was going to have to go out and get some more money in the deal. At that period of time when he was going to get more money in the deal, it made a material impact on his rate of return to his investors. So he had an option just to get lower rate of return to his investors, raise more money, or two, try to find a bridge loan, have us do a bridge loan. Fannie Mae lender had a bridge program that we could have put into, but the borrower made a decision, a business decision, that he did not want to raise more money, or two, did not want to get into a bridge loan. He just felt that this deal was not performing as well. Interest rates were getting higher, didn't want to kind of kick the can down the road to do a bridge loan in the deal because he didn't know, they usually are 2 years and then did not know what that's going to look like two years from now. And so he walked away from $200,000. So we gave it an option, but he didn't like those options. But my thinking is raise more money in case something down the road happens, or incentivize the seller to keep their foot in the gas. You can't change it, but they definitely can. So maybe find a way in the contract that if they can keep their foot in the gas, or even their workers, the workers get a bonus to make sure that they do all these maintenance calls, that they continue to keep the occupancy high, continue to work the property as hard as they can, because that's a decision some people have, is that we can get a bridge loan to say up to 75, or with Fannie would go down to say 65 or 67 or whatever that number is. There could be an added refi risk that you have to understand in these deals. So anything more to comment on that, Michael?
Yeah, no, we bought a property that was a newer property with some exchange money, and we were successful that we had to have minimum. We set floors for by unit type on rental rates. We set occupancy floor, and if they didn't hit it within a certain range, we got a credit, and if it got past a certain range, we had the option to terminate the contract. And so, we were able to negotiate that deal, that covenant into the contract. You're not always going to be able to do that. And that was one of the rare occasions that we were, but that's stuff that we were worried about and thought about. So, just make sure you pay attention to that, do some certain diligence. And, the first thing I would definitely say is time kills deals. So don't screw around, get the app in, get it going, get it rate locked, close the thing as quick as possible, because, the performance can go in the tank, your proceeds can get cut. Rates can go up, the proceeds get cut. There could be a fire, there could be, hailstorm. All these things can happen. So time kills deals. So work quickly and efficiently and close your deal.
That's great. So if people want to get more information about what SPI does, what's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, the easiest way is simply go to our company's website, which is www.spiadvisory.com. That's SPI like spy. Advisory.com. There is a contact us form, fill it out, and I'm always happy to have a 10 or 15 minute telephone call with listeners of the podcast that want to learn a little bit more about what we do and potentially working with us.
That's great. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. We hopefully will see you at the Grapevine Convention Center on February the 6th, which is a Wednesday. I think there'll be a great opportunity to network and talk with other folks about what's going on in multifamily. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, if you want to find more information about that, just go to www.oldcapitalpodcast.com. You can sign up and register for the event on February 6th at, I think the doors open about 6 o'clock. We'll have two good economists talking, a bunch of, 250 to 300 of our closest friends to network and talk shop with.
Fantastic. Well, that was Michael Becker. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.